Dennis, you're starting.
Yeah, I think the first point, I don't know what the other points will be yet, but I know the first point for sure is...
That's so profound, Dennis. And I want to dial back to the first point that you made.
If it's about impact, our stories need to grow. Our stories need to change, and we can't just be having conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Everything. Ooh, those are two separate questions. You're cheating, Michelle, already.
Today's guest is a digital storyteller, entrepreneur, and the visionary behind Defining Media, one of the most influential platforms telling Africa's stories through powerful video content. From building an audience of hundreds of thousands of online to recently returning from London where he studied film, he's all about using storytelling to shift culture and equip Africa's youth. Dennis Ngango, everybody. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the best and the biggest sales and entrepreneurship podcast in the whole wide world. Today's guest is a digital storyteller, an entrepreneur, and the visionary behind Defining. And by defining, I mean defining Jolo, defining Gonke, every defining you've seen on YouTube. The visionary behind that is with me today in the room. And it's basically one of the most influential platforms that tells African stories on the YouTube platforms and every single platform that we've got out there. From building an audience of hundreds of thousands of people online to recently returning from London, where he studied film. Hey, he's all about using storytelling to shift culture and equip Africa's youth. I'm so excited to speak to Dennis Ngango.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too.
It's been a long time coming. It's been a long time coming. But one thing about us, we did it.
Exactly. You know, Dennis, I'm so excited to talk to you. But you see, I'm going to get excited because there's so much we have to talk to. We had to talk about. We had already started before we started recording.
Yes.
But before we do that, I get chastised by my audience if I don't do this 5 round of questions when we kickstart the session.
Okay, let's get into it.
Which is like just to get to know Dennis a little bit and the creative, all right?
Awesome.
So the first question I'm going to ask you is, if your life right now was a movie, what would the title be and who's directing it?
I'm really enjoying Ryan Coogler's work.
Okay.
So he will probably be directing it. And then, I think it would just be titled Mission Impossible. Because I think that's where I'm at right now. We're doing the impossible. And it's scary, but we're going.
Dennis, you're starting. Ryan Coogler, you said.
Yeah.
What did he direct? Is there anything that we've seen?
Yes, so Black Panther. He did the Black Panther movies. Sinners, which is also out now recently. So he's just a young black filmmaker who's also just trying to disrupt filmmaking in the Hollywood systems.
Okay. Second question. What's something people assume about digital storytellers that you wish they understood better?
I wish, people knew the type of work it takes to actually curate these type of stories.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of doubt that comes into play and a lot of trying to understand your audience, a lot of trying to be consistent, because once people like you for what they like you for, they want you to stay there forever.
You must keep it coming.
And trying to grow with them as you grow as well is quite challenging. So I think it looks fun. It looks very easy.
Okay.
But it has its challenges.
All right. The last one is, what's the most surprising lesson London taught you about yourself or about storytelling?
Those are two separate questions. You're cheating, Michelle, already.
It's like I get 4 in 3.
In terms of the greatest lesson, I think it's just the reminder that as African creators, we are exactly who we think we are. I think we see it so much in the Amapiano space or even with Tyler, but it was nice being on the other side of the world where I was in my class the only black student, a lot of the times the only African student as well. And we have the energy, we have the presence, we have the skills. Yeah. And it was so nice to get that reminder of we don't need to go far to empower ourselves. We have a lot of things already working for us.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's interesting. You mentioned, I think when I asked you the first question, you mentioned Ryan Coogler.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, so my partner is quite a creative and he watches a lot of movies, but for like his own business reasons.
Yeah.
And it opened up my world to learn storytelling using my content and the way that I communicate from script writers, which is essentially movies.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to Quentin Tarantino.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, and his movies and just his way of directing and putting things together. And I'm quite intrigued. So now every time I'm watching like a movie, it's like my mind is not only on the entertainment, but it's like the plot. It is so many things. The color coding to a scene.
Yes.
It's now just complicated for me more than it was before. And what I want to find out from you is, what is the world of film opened you up to content creating? And the reference to this is before you went to London, like you were creating content with the rest of us. We were part of YouTube Black, and it was defining. And I think you had a level of you just did it at a high level. You had a better understanding of it than all of us.
Yeah.
But now when you're now like stepping into the intricacies of like film and cinematography, what did that open you up to from a content creation perspective?
It was crazy because when I first arrived, so if I actually take it a bit back, my undergrad degree was in engineering. So I did my studies in engineering, finished as an industrial engineer. And while I did that, I met Norma and Bongani at the University of Pretoria. That's where we were like, okay, let's start defining things. Let's start creating this YouTube channel. But at the same time, it still wasn't, I knew I enjoyed doing these things, but at the same time, I didn't know what a career could look like. So I continued pursuing the engineering side. And at some time, I realized, even while doing the content, that if it's about impact, our stories need to grow. Our stories need to change, and we can't just be having conversations. And that's when I realized I want to take it to film. I realized then that I also want to learn from the best in order to become the best, because the channel was also at a space where we were doing quite well. So for me to take time away, it had to be worth it. So it was actually the YouTube channel and content creation that got me into my university. I said to them tangibly that I have 200 videos for an audience of 200,000 people that has amassed 20 million views and 97 watch hour years. That means that if you were to count all the minutes of people having watched our content, it's 97 years. So when I tell you there's a business and there's an opportunity, there is one. So content was the thing that got me in the room. It allowed people to say, you can go to a master's level. So content creation has changed my life because it opened that door for me to be able to get into the film space. But once I got into the film space, I realized it's not as simple as we do it with content creation. You could have 3 people behind the scenes navigating different type of skills, from your sound to also doing cameras and also helping you produce at the same time. With film, as you said, there's color grading, there's script writing, there is producing in different ways, in terms of even getting your rights, your licenses to different things that you mentioned, because it's free to be able to expose and talk about different things. But the moment it's going to live on another platform where people can potentially make money, if you're speaking about someone else or using someone else, that means that we'll then need to get those other people compensated. So going to the UK and learning about film, I saw how complex and big it is, and how, yes, content creation built me in terms of being able to produce from a very flexible and adaptable way. You know, there were challenges we'd have on set while I was making films that side, and there were always solutions because I was shooting in small rooms with my friends, guys. We made things work. You know, you need something to stand. Okay, let's bring 5 different type of books. You know what I mean? You make things work when you do content creation. So I think content creation just gave me the basics of not only being a good producer, but a good storyteller. But then going to film school showed me how big and complex this world really is. And it's not just as simple as 3 people on set, but now when we shoot even something that's 3 minutes long, it can take 25 people on set, and it takes 3 months to work on that project. Whereas we're shooting this now, it can go live even later today or tomorrow. So learning those rules about film was quite interesting.
And I think possibly the intention behind those rules, I think is very big, because we can easily underestimate why there needs to be 25 people, because every single element is so important.
Yeah.
My recent, favorite thing when it comes to just the creation, and I say content because it is a form of a content creation, is the series Adolescents on Netflix.
Yeah.
And I got into this rabbit hole of like figuring out how did they do the whole thing in one shot and one take. And it was like, I was just like, oh my God, just mind blown with a lot of things that they did to like incorporate that work of art. What's the work of art like that you look at now and you're like, I did that?
That's a hard question. I think there's a lot of stuff because as I told you, I was the only Black person in my class. And towards the end of our year, instead of doing just a master's thesis, you also make a film. And out of the 24 producers and directors, we all got to pitch, but only 8 films get made.
Sure.
So it was very important for me to pitch and try to get one of my films made, which I ended up getting chosen, which was really incredible.
Nice.
And I told a story called Living on the Edge, and it was about men's mental health and suicide prevention. Because in the UK, suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 50. So they really battle with men's mental health and suicide in the UK. And it was so interesting to see that even the work that I was doing in terms of defining and trying to bring communities together, my superpower was relevant there as well, because then I could see I'm passionate about this theme. And then I'm saying, oh, wait, this community might need it a bit more immediately in some type of way than any other community at this point in time. So it was just really interesting to see how, once again, the skills that I had prepared me for that moment. So making that film was really something I was proud of. It's been able to play around the world, in Canada, in Germany, in France, in South Africa, in the UK a couple of times, and it won an award recently, Best International Film in Ireland.
Oh, look
so
at
that
you!
That is definitely my pride and joy right now, because it's crazy to me that the first film I ever made is an international film.
Yeah.
And that's just like, how is this life? How is this my world?
Sure. What made you realize that can actually be a business or a form of income? Because I think that could potentially be the challenge that exists in Africa at the moment, where we start creating content because we love it. It's passion. And African people just love telling stories in general. There's like, I don't know what they call them, but it's one of they're called Diani, like African proverbs or African stories that we were told by our grandmothers. We are generally just storytellers, and we are able to do it online. But sometimes it's like we're able to do these stories, but it can be years and we don't monetize, and there isn't money. What was the point where you realized that like this can actually be a business, or this can be a thing, or maybe how can other people, because the game has probably changed now, than it was when you started or when you were growing into it. But how can other people kind of figure out the monetization part of it?
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides to it, because I think the first time is really just your positioning and knowing that you really position yourself well for the type of stories that you want to tell. I heard recently someone say as well that you are the one who creates the appetite. And I think sometimes we look at the trends, but if you create long enough, the finding wasn't cool for like 3 years. We were on 1,000 subscribers for a very long time until it was the appetite and it worked. So I think it's about understanding that you have to figure out your positioning. You have to be able to know that it's going to take a lot of work to be able to create that appetite for your audience, and then making sure you have that consistency, and that you already started off understanding that it's a business. Because passion is really exciting, but I think being able to see how you can sell it to people and how it can grow into something big is really important. And I think sometimes we forget that a lot of things are sellable, and that's something that I learned in the UK as well, is that when you meet people, and it's a big metropolitan, people network all the time, people mention all their jobs. People are not leaving something off and saying, how can I be palatable? How can I make it make sense for this room? There they will mention, I am the podcast host, the podcast producer, the podcast coffee maker, the podcast editor, the podcast initiator. They will mention all of those things, and somewhere along those lines, something will stick. Someone will take that thing and be able to monopolize that with you and take it to the next level. So I think putting yourself out there as well is really, really crucial. I think in terms of just taking it to the next level, I think one of the hardest things for me when I got to the UK was that I went there knowing that storytelling was this big passion, and went there thinking that it's really exciting. And for us as Africans, as you said, and that's why I'm mentioning it, it's part of our proverbs, it's part of our identity, it's part of how we see and claim power.
Yeah.
But part of other parts of the world see it as a job, something that they have money to do, and something that they just want to explore. So all this heart and excitement you have towards being able to tell a story is really remarkable, but it doesn't really pay the bills. It doesn't really take us where you need to go. And one of my biggest lessons that side was, instead of seeing myself as an African producer, I had to strip back my Africanness, my blackness. I had to just be a good producer. And that required me taking a step back from my ideologies of film and storytelling in terms of how it made me feel and how it made other people feel.
Yeah.
But more so now about the technicalities of it, the story of it. What are we actually executing? Is it going to be sustainable? Is there a business for it? Where is that business for it? And how are you going to reach them? And if that's not possible, then should you be knocking on this door in the first place? So it was a big learning curve in terms of, you may be excited about these things, but that is not enough. Hence I see a lot of value in any type of platform anyone is doing right now, because if there's a vision, a place for that platform, then work hard, put yourself out there, get it out there, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to get you noticeable. That's what's going to get you the appetite. And that's what's going to show the world that not only are you passionate, but you're good at what you do.
Sure. It's like you now have to plug yourself into this value chain.
Yes.
Which is very important. And this value chain at some point does require you to kind of strip yourself off all the things that you held yourself as like your identity, like, being a Black woman in business. It's like, no, you just now need to be in business on the global front and compete on the global front. That is so, so, so interesting. I've been exploring this idea of the creator economy overall, right? Realizing that sometimes when you start off, it's like, as a content creator, you are the producer, the script writer, the editor, the set builder. You are all of these things.
Yes.
But the more you advance, or rather when you're exposed to other things, you realize that there's actually a value chain, which is why there should be 25 people, sometimes 100 people on set to ensure that this thing happens. How do we start plugging ourselves into that value chain without fear? And I'll say it like this, right? For instance, if I'm starting as a content creator and I'm just creating content and everything is amazing, but at some point I feel like I'm tired and I don't feel like creating anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because now I have 200,000 followers, but like I don't have the time to script, film, color correct, edit, put the caption together and like do all of those things. So what are the things we need to start looking at in terms of building our empires? Like, I'll give you another example. At Resonate, right? We are a business, but we also have like a media department, which is essentially the production of this whole thing.
Yeah.
To which, personally, as the founder, I'm not interested in how this thing gets edited. I want it to be edited correctly with a specific editor. There's somebody that needs to sort out the sound, etc.
Yeah.
There's a value chain tied to that. But it took so long for me to know that, and it took so long for me to start, because initially I thought I would have to be doing all of these things, because I really wasn't aware at the beginning that you hire people to do this. So with the experience that you gathered there, how do we actually then start building that for ourselves? And also opening up different career paths for different people that want to be in the creative economy without like dancing on TikTok or sitting on this table and talking in front of the camera.
I think it's really imperative to understand the value chain in it of itself, to know the different roles that, come into play, the different people that get involved, not only from your directors or your producers, but from your other departments as well, such as like even your makeup. It's something that seems so simple to people who are not necessarily content creators, but this takes time. You coming together, having everything ready, looking polished, having the wardrobe that you want. These things take time.
It's like the color of what you're wearing tells a story. Oh my gosh.
Everything comes together.
Hectic.
So it's about being able to understand the value chain, and I think starting to collaborate as much as possible within the value chain, with defining even of itself Bongani is someone who's really passionate about cameras, and he can speak to you about any camera or drone any time of the day. That was something I understood very early in the game, and hence I bought cameras in the beginning of this journey, and then I didn't have to buy cameras anymore because that's what he wanted to do. Even with his spare time, even with his last 50 rand, he still wanted to go find a way to buy a camera. So that gave me the opportunity, while we were still figuring out funds, to go use our money somewhere else. So I think it's about being able to collaborate with the right people and being able to see value in the value chain itself and value in your time. Because at the end of the day, when you're not doing the 5 different things for Resonate, you're able to do so much more other stuff with that time. And the business needs you to do that stuff with that time. It doesn't need you to be focusing on those other things. So I think it's important to understand the chain, start collaborating, and start having those boundaries in terms of I won't go this far. So even now, in terms of having gone to the UK, learned how to make films, now I'm in a place where I'm working with different storytellers to produce their films. And even when I'm trying to produce my own films, I don't cross the roles. I don't now decide I'm the producer, director, and writer. I know there would be an excitement towards doing that, but I know that collaboration also brings nuance. It also brings excitement, especially if you're collaborating with the right people. I recently made a film where the camera person that, the DOP that we got for the project, not only did he end up having his own gear house, so he had a whole lot of gear that we could then end up have access to, but his home is also a filming space, and it's a space that they actually use for shows on other platforms. So not only did we get to collaborate with this person and pay them their fee for collaborating with them, but they also said, because you understand your vision, no worries about some of the gear and no worries about your location fee.
Oh, nice.
So I think it's about being able to see that your idea, as much as it's very exciting, can still only live at a certain place if it's only you who's working on it.
How do we use all of, we see, what I'm trying to do is like extrapolate all of that London info.
One by one. Let's go.
Right?
Yeah.
How do we use it in our 1-minute content piece? One of the things we mentioned is like, what I have recently been awakened to, by recent, I mean a couple of months ago, is like the makeup, the hair, the clothing. Obviously, within like watching all these movies, you know, that certain colors give a certain cue. There's like, it's tiny little nuances that like say something to the brain. I want you to give us those, it could be 4, 5, 2, 3 key elements that give mental cues when people are watching something. So this could be for a business owner who's trying to create a 60-minute ad for their products and their service, or it could be us who want to create an ad for this podcast. What are the cues we need to, without having the big production budget and 25 people on set, but these are cues that we can say, if I want to create this content piece and want to invest money in it, or even without it, these are the things I need to start looking and being intentional about.
Yeah, I think the first point, I don't know what the other points will be yet, but I know the first point for sure is get to the meat as soon as possible. Get to the meat and show people what the meat is. I think there's so many incredible things that we can use, such as lighting, such as different type of cameras, and also being such a mobile first continent right now, mobile is the best place to create, honestly speaking. But yeah, get to the meat first. Show people exactly what your value proposition is. Because at the end of the day, when I'm in the seat, I can already know to a certain degree what I'll be getting from Michelle. And I'm also going to be excited to experience it with Michelle because I know her value proposition is something that already resonates through all of her content. So I think get to the meat as soon as possible and make sure that looks consistent in everything else that you do. There's a certain there's certain pillars or things that guides the type of content I make that people always know, okay, this was a type of story that was either empowering in some type of way, told me something new about something, or was just really an exciting experience that I never knew something about. But in terms of enriching experiences for my audience, that's something that I always, bear in mind. So have those things that, these are the bounds for my content and whatever I publish. If people know that I'm good at creating conversation, if I do a 360 and start doing vlogs all of a sudden, then there's going to be that disconnect, which leads me to, I think, my third point now, which is respect your audience and know that they respect you as well. People will treat you how you treat them, not only in the business world, not only in the life to life, but I think also with the content. If you give them something, they'll give you something back. So I think giving your audience something valuable and knowing that they'll be able to resonate with it is really important. I think another thing is, while getting to the meat and keeping those things there, I think give yourself room to also try different things and be conscious of what's happening in industry. Be conscious of what your peers are doing. Be conscious of how they are creating and how people are moving forward. Do the research, because being knowledgeable is power. And
Very true, yeah.
when people know that you're knowledgeable, even more with the comments that they make on your content, people want to engage with you even more. So I think those are the key things that I'd say. And for the people who are really just starting off, I'd say give yourself a proper chance. That's my biggest thing. Even now, as I come back from the UK and I try and get myself integrated as well. That's why I said Mission Impossible, because I have to give it my all.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it, give it your all, because you deserve it. And so does your business.
That's so profound, Dennis. And I want to dial back to the first point that you made, which is something along the lines of just running away now.
Going to the meat.
Going to the meat. Yes,
Yeah.
going to the meat. And I wanted to ask you, what does getting to the meat look like from a realistic point of view? And when I was thinking of it, when you said it, I thought to myself, every time I'm creating like a podcast episode, the biggest question I ask myself, or any content piece, is like, what do I want to say here?
Yeah.
Like, what is the act? What's the purpose of this conversation?
Yeah.
What do I want to leave people here? And for me, if I can like just have three things, like I just want people to walk away with 1, 2, 3, sharp. Whether it's an hour or we'll just be elaborating on those key factors that I want people to learn from there. Is that essentially what you mean?
Yes. So I definitely think have those 3 factors and give those 3 factors enough room to also be different in the sense that you can also see where your audience gauges, because even in those 3 factors, there's priorities.
True.
So you'll be able to see which one is a priority for you and which one is a priority for your audience. So being able to know these are the key things.
Yeah.
And as you see the 3 things unpack, those 3 things become 6 things.
Yeah.
And because you allow yourself to meet yourself there, that's how this whole thing just grows and
ties itself into one big package.
Exactly.
Okay. You mentioned very key and important things into, just the deep nuances.
Yeah.
Let's get a bit light in terms of like set design, look and feel, color, because I think sometimes, especially as smart people, the entrepreneurs, those are things we really don't pay attention to, because we think I'm knowledgeable, I'm smart, and when I make a 60-second video and I just say stuff or I say something important, people are going to listen.
Yeah.
But as you grow, you realize that, they will listen, but you'll have a much more effect if you lit it up a bit more, if you had a better sound, if you looked a little bit, better or more put together, etc. What are those kind of things from a visual cue when people are just coming across a TikTok or a video that's just come up? What are those visual cues that people can be very intentional with working on at the same time while applying the things that you've just mentioned?
Oh, that's a bit of a tricky one, because I think for the type of content I make, I think, and the type of impact I've been able to see it do, I think giving your audience an opportunity to meet you directly is quite important. And I know there are content creators who are not having these type of conversations where they don't have to, face camera. But I think it's about just really having the right, starting your content off with a bang, be it them being able to see you in a way that is visually lit well, where they can see what is the priority and they can see it sort of positioned in a way that amplifies the audience, because you don't want people's attention to go everywhere else.
That's true.
You don't want people to be thinking, why is her earring looking like that? So what you are wearing is really imperative. But I think it's about making sure that nothing takes away from what you're trying to engage with people on.
Mm.
And just pushing those type of things to the front.
Yeah.
Using natural lighting. It doesn't have to be this expensive lighting,
Yeah.
but using natural lighting is really imperative.
Mm.
Being aware of what's in, your backdrop. If you're now in your bathroom and now there's a lot of different type of clothing, lying around, but at the same time you're telling people about business and stuff, or you're telling them something really passionate.
Yeah.
It doesn't really connect because now I'm looking at your bathroom,
Yeah.
and the things happening in the background. So I do think it's about being smart with what is happening around you and making sure that you're also positioning that in the best possible way.
Yeah.
That getting to the meat doesn't necessarily only just mean getting to that content right away, but getting to it in the best, most efficient way that is the most exciting for your audience and the most honest as well. Yeah, I think honesty goes
a long way.
A long way.
I was introduced to a series on Netflix. I haven't watched much of it. I think I watched an episode or two. It's called, is it Hitched? Or something along those lines. It's about like a nurse in a hospital where people have got mental issues.
I'm not aware of it yet.
Amazing. But the reason I was introduced to it is because one of the things I picked up was how they manipulated color within the scenes to communicate certain things.
Yeah.
Right. And what I want to ask you, because these are things I personally just kind of pick up and, I'll ask around or do some research. And sometimes my husband tries to make me understand them. But what I want to find out from you is, what does color say? Because after, even for me seeing that, I realize that when the colors are red, I feel a certain way.
Yes.
When they go blue, they give me a certain perception. When it goes yellow, and it's not even, I don't tell myself, it's just mental cues that happen while I'm watching an episode or a scene that, the colors change. What could that be saying? In horror movies where they use a lot of red and dark colors because they want, it's a grim effect. What do colors say, and how do we manipulate color? Or maybe are there specific colors, for instance, for entrepreneurs that they should be focused on using in their content to communicate a certain professional image?
For an entrepreneurship point of view, I don't know if I have the right answers because I know they used to say a lot of blues.
Yes.
I know they said a lot of blues.
Yeah.
And then I think they said greens as well.
Greens, yes.
Yeah. So I know that type of thing.
And black.
Yes.
Just, bank colors.
Yes, definitely that. I think it's about I think even as an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, you're selling something.
Yeah.
And one thing I did in the UK a lot was I always used to wear my traditional shirts in the UK because I knew that would let people know who exactly I am before
that is so interesting.
Would really engage with them, but also more so because they came from the continent itself. They were just different compared to what people were exposed to. So when I was in those type of rooms, people would engage with me first because they'd be like, dope
Such
jacket,
a great
dope
conversation
shirt.
starter.
It's so I think with anything you do content-wise, be it color as well, any type of positioning, make sure you have enough things that can be a conversation starter that can draw people in. From a cinematic point of view, color grading plays a big, big thing because it just really creates a mood more than anything else. I know even in corporate back in the day, they used to say,
blue, gray, white, and black.
Yes. And then they used to say as well something about wearing red, and women should not wear red because that means you're saying you're the one.
It's like you're promiscuous.
Yes.
Red lipstick or just putting on anything red.
Yes. So it's just interesting how color theory comes into play, as you're saying, because it creates a mood, it creates an expectation. And I think in terms of just content creation, just having that brightness like what you do with your content, I think is really imperative because it allows people to get to the meat without getting distracted by anything else. I know with, your tech creators, they're always in dark rooms as well, so that when they show you the new camera or they show you any new devices, you're able to see those details quite nicely. So I do think that there is a blueprint, but part of being an entrepreneur is knowing that you're here to disrupt that blueprint as well.
That is true. And just finding the harmony within maybe playing with it and also disrupting it as well.
Yeah, because sometimes those things don't feel genuine to you as well in the beginning. They just don't seem you don't want it to seem like all of the entrepreneurship content locally was all shot in a penthouse in Santon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That can't be everyone's content.
Yeah.
And that can't be everyone's value proposition. It might look good to certain people who buy, but should you be able to get your audience to the meat in a different way, then that type of value chain doesn't necessarily have the same impact for them.
Yeah.
You know, so if you are creating content and you are a restaurant owner, for example, get me to the food. Get me to the food.
You don't want to see the chair and how gorgeous it looks.
Nah.
And all of that other stuff.
I don't want you sitting telling me the menu. Show me the menu, then tell me. You know, that's the type of thing. Like, get to it, show us. And then from there, you have my attention.
Yeah.
You can tell me about the new menu, the winter menu, the autumn menu. I'll listen to all of it. But once you've showed me what your food can look like, then cool.
Yeah.
And then once you show me what your food can look like, and then afterwards you tell me about your employees and some of the differences you're making in community, cool. But you know what you did? You showed me that food, and I'll appreciate you for that. You know, so show me the thing, and I'll be keen to get more involved and invested.
Yeah. Let's talk about the art of building suspense. Because this is something that in cinematography you guys do very, very well. The trailers. It's essentially what sells.
Yeah.
Right? It's what you put forward before I get to say, I'm going to pay this money to watch this whole thing. And essentially sometimes we do that a lot with podcasts and long form content. We'll create a 60-second, a 90-second thing that says, what's this podcast? And then we put all of those things. What are the key elements to building suspense, especially in like building a trailer or about to launch something, but specifically when it comes to the visual cues that then help people become interested?
I think it's about understanding your audience, because even it's understanding audience, and it's also understanding your narrative arc, because how I would do that in film would be completely different compared to how I would do it for a YouTube channel or a YouTube video. Because for a YouTube video, those first 15 seconds are really imperative. For a film, me establishing it and giving you something to look forward to, giving you enough tension to excite you to watch this thing, and then only getting to the bar dropping at that 50th minute. That's the type of, style and cycle that they use there, or narrative technique. So I think it's about knowing, what you're working with, who your audience is and what they expect. And I think it's about not being afraid to show people the best parts. I think that sometimes especially with defining and some of the things we would create, if we wouldn't show people the best part, someone is going to screenshot that thing and put it on Twitter and TikTok and take it somewhere else, So don't be afraid to show your best bits, because at the end of the day, people, when they see those best bits, they're going to be on that journey towards it with you, specifically with content.
Yeah.
They'll be on that journey so that when that best bit hits, it hits in a different way, because now they understand you a bit better. But even if they didn't understand you, it still hits because the context of that thing still matters. So I think it's about knowing even the context of whatever you put out there, because if I say something now related to my time in the UK, but people don't know that based off of the snippet that you put out, then it might not be the most effective. So understanding what could be the most effective selling point in whatever you've created for that 60-second would be imperative. For some of the things that I do, it's those best bits that get people interested.
I see.
And we've seen with some of our storytelling that specifically on TikTok, we just need to do 12 seconds. Even if this best bit is like 24 seconds or even 30 seconds long, if we make it a bit more tighter, that replay value is a bit more higher, gets exposed a bit more, and people now they're a bit more curious. And I think feeding into people's curiosity is also good. That's what I'm saying. An understanding of audience is really, really important.
Yeah, because I do see how it can get a bit tricky in terms of sharing the best bits and feeling like you don't want to give people everything before they watch. Because then if they engage with the video, then 10 minutes in, they're like, yeah, but it's what the trailer said, so why should I stick around? And they just click on to the next thing. But also some people then get caught up in like wanting to be, what does Kanye say? Provocative.
Yes.
And like not sharing the best bits, but sharing the provocative parts of a specific thing to create conversation and rile up people so that they can eventually watch the same thing. Could you say that is a technique that essentially works?
I think it's it's based off of what platform you use. Because like I was saying earlier about seeing value in different type of platforms, something like that, for example, is not necessarily going to like hit the best for a platform like this, which is very much about telling the entrepreneur's story and sharing valuable business tools and techniques, you know? So it's about knowing whether that thing can enhance your brand or not. Because as I said with defining, it took us a long time before people trusted us, before people watched our stuff. So I think sometimes you need to be okay with that part of the journey and see maybe content creation, yes, is a big part of your value stream, but so can other parts. Like even for myself now, I haven't rushed back into defining just as yet, but I've been able to make a movie while I've been back. I've been able to make a documentary while I've been back. I've been able to work at live events. So there's different type of value streams that I'm also seeing have value in their own type of way. And when that feeds into content, it's going to be really exciting. And I know it will. But I think seeing the different things is important because if you're chasing numbers, I think that's a very dangerous thing because even numbers don't necessarily generate revenue. And being accessible, being outside, it doesn't necessarily mean your bank is rolling. So I think it's really about understanding those things that, yes, position yourself in the best possible way. But also understand other things could also be bringing value in. That's not just whether you told the best content in the last month or so.
Yeah, I like what you mentioned when you said that the numbers don't always equate to the money, because that is a real thing. You can have 200,000 views and your AdSense be low than somebody who just had 10,000 views because of the CPM and the different matrix. For people who love telling stories and are so passionate about telling stories, and they look at the Defining channel, they say, oh my God, I want to build something like that. But sometimes when we just see off the bat, we don't really get to see what's the monetization structure here like. Like, you guys are a team of 3, first of all. Who are full-time into your business and a lot of other things. I mean, when I found out during a conversation with you how you guys monetize Defining, I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is like, because it just never occurred to me that those would be the avenues at that time. What are the ways that a channel or organization like Defining monetizes to not only stay afloat, but to be able to tell more and better stories?
Yeah, so I think we obviously monetize through just actually posting. And we're quite lucky because, you know, TikTok is busy introducing their own ways of bringing revenue and monetization for their creators. And Meta, Facebook, they're doing their big one right now. So for all creators, get involved. Facebook also has...
Are you guys getting paid on Facebook?
Yes, we are.
I heard somebody say that the other day.
Yes.
Good bucks.
Yes. And the audience there is completely different.
Of course, yeah.
Completely different. But at the same time, they're still consuming the content. So I think it's really staying on top of all of those, just in terms of from a base level, me creating the content with the team. There are platforms that can actually get you revenue for doing just that. Then it's about finding your collaborators, seeing what your collaborators are doing, how they're, again, through pitching as well, through putting ourselves out there, seeing how we can, you know, have, for example, we work with Netflix a lot. So being able to help them promote some of their shows. So just things like that where with different brands, you can see, okay, I can help you with your storytelling in specific ways and feature that on Defining. And I think through time, we've seen that not only are our skills transferable with Defining, but with other people's brands as well. So Bongani, for example, has done incredible work with Coke. You know, he did incredible work with other brands as well. He's working with VW too, where it's like now he's doing videography and consulting, and he's even bringing creators together in different ways. So I think just being able to see that not only is your storytelling capabilities good for the actual storytelling, but in other parts of business as well.
But also, whose voice can you amplify with your storytelling? I think that's what sticks out the most when you say collaborations. It's like, if you look at a Netflix, the kind of stories that they tell would be the kind of stories that fit well into, for instance, Defining Jolo, and you being able to put like a Love is Blind or something plugged into that. And I think those collaborations do make a lot of sense. Would you say that Facebook is like a better monetization platform currently than YouTube? Or
Not
could be
necessarily. Not better just as yet, because they're still figuring it
testing
out.
it out? Yeah.
They're still testing it out. Because I know YouTube has made those efforts over the years to make it more accessible for people over the years. But now Facebook is starting to roll it out. And I think just in terms of Facebook having a big audience and also putting in the reels as well in their own type of way now as well, I think that there is something powerful there. And I think it's just an additional value system or monetization like platform that I think people should really consider. And I think even there might be able to be another way of just being able to plug in, because the nice thing with Facebook as well is that it has the marketplace.
Yes.
So being able to also plug in the different aspects of Facebook for your business would be really powerful.
Yeah. Is there a moment at the beginning of defining that kind of opened you guys up to the monetization aspect? Because I can imagine just, creatives coming together to tell stories. Was there ever a moment that awakened you guys to the amount of cash that could be flowing into this thing that you guys have started?
I think you still realize that as you go, because in every type of industry you find out about different type of rate cards. You find out about, you just also start understanding that there was a different type of advertising industry that existed before this time.
True.
So now advertising is also putting money into content creation, but at the same time they're not necessarily investing that same type of money in content creation.
Yeah.
So I think it was just about having access to knowing that type of knowledge about the ways in which people are making money, and seeing that passion is exciting, but is there a way to take this passion to the next level and see it as a business?
Sure.
And I think once we started having those conversations, then it became a bit more about how can we play smart, So even something like YouTube Black, some of that money hasn't even been used because of just how we understood that, okay, money's coming in, so we need to find a way to keep that, make that work for us in a different type of way. So I think it's about just understanding the economy, the creator economy as well, and knowing you want to be in it. So these are the type of sacrifices and awareness you need to have.
Yeah, and some of it you obviously learn along the way as well.
Of course.
As you're growing and moving. And shout out to YouTube Black, man. They did a number.
They did, yeah. And it's really so exciting to be appreciated by a platform that you work with. And these are the things, again, that when I'm in the UK, these are things that are sellable. Me being able to say I was part of YouTube Black, where they chose 32 or how many creators in the continent, in the world, and I'm one of the best of them. And I'm one of the best Black creators as well. So,
and award winning. They gave us awards.
Yes.
Remember in Cape Town?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, these things, they add up, and you can't just sleep on it.
They actually matter because you realize that it's like small little things. But one of the things that I like to highlight a lot within these journeys is that sometimes people need to understand that it takes time.
Yeah.
Like YouTube Black was 2022 and you guys started creating content like years before then. So it only takes time as you continue to build and run for it to actually be formed as a business. And now start having business initiatives that allow everybody to earn and for it to grow as well. When you were in London last year, and you and I were chatting, you sent me a message and you're like, Mish, you have to come to London.
Please.
Because it's like, this would be your world and you would thrive. And I want to ask you, and I think for me and for the purpose of my audience, what do you think? I want to put this question correctly.
No pressure.
What is the thing that you think if I went to London and spent some time there, I would get the best out of, based on what you've observed in terms of the creative economy and the work that we do?
Yes. So I think in terms of the creative economy, not only is it established and people are champions of the creative economy, which is quite cool. People want to see you thrive as creators and they want to see you have your different platforms. But I think they want to always support people who are competent. And I think that's what I was also trying to say to you is that you are incredibly talented. You're already focused in. And you do a lot of work in front and behind the camera. This isn't your only form of business. So I could just see that as a competent creative, who is from Africa and not scared of being exposed to the rest of the world, you would thrive there because you would be able to see other parts of yourself that you never knew existed, other parts of business that you could see, I can actually take this back and actually make it better, you know? So it's good to see a more established, industry. So even, for example, in the UK, when it comes to film, we have already certain types of that side. They have certain type of contracts for actors, even if they're working in student films. These are all under a union. So it's all protected. If children are going to work on a set, their education is prioritized in certain ways. If we're going to be filming on a street, there's no guerrilla filmmaking, which is more so just making it happen on the spot. There's certain municipalities and groups of people we need to speak to. There's just a certain standard that you learn that now when I came back and I made a film, I had to integrate those contracts because I know they exist and I know what a proper value of something, you know, can do not only for you, but also for your set if you empower everyone the right way. So just being able to get that access of proper knowledge, proper experiences, even for something that's new and fresh was just incredible because now when people work with me on any type of set, it's international expertise that they're dealing with. Not just one that is excited about being in the room, but one that knows the value of the room and the value of everyone else there.
I love that. I'd probably want to spend like a month with Stephen Bartlett and his team.
Yes. They're so dynamic. Incredible work.
My gosh. I'd just, they must just give me a desk. That's all. I just want to
watch.
I just want to watch.
Fly on the wall.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Because there's so much that you learn and you get to see from spaces like that you're just like, man, if I could just get access to maybe just that level of that way of doing, it'll take everything that I do to the next level.
Yeah. I think there's just something about being an entrepreneur is very gritty. It's very hard. It's very difficult. But I think there's also something about being an entrepreneur where you're in a cocoon for a very long time. But you have to realize that you need to become that butterfly at some point or another. Be it about your revenue that you know you can make, or be it about that impossible thing that you know you can step into. Emphasis is on you can step into it. So I do think that yes, entrepreneurship is hard, but that hard work that you've put in is harder and it works. It's just not reaping just as yet. But the fact that you're putting yourself out there, the fact that you're trying, the fact that this is an idea that you know can work, I just don't think people should give up on those type of things. Having had the opportunity now to just create a YouTube channel with my friends and get a scholarship to go study in the UK, get my master's, finish with distinction. These are all things that my parents could have never dreamed of. And even myself, I don't know how to sometimes comprehend. But I have to understand that these are things that have been afforded to me. And I need to take that leap now to do the next thing that's afforded to me. You can't stop now. You can't get used to the old. It's difficult. It's hard. It's scary. It's sad. It's anxious. But you gotta believe in that magic because if it was once there, it will always be there. And that's what the UK taught me. It was like, this magic, it's in every part of the world because it's wherever you are.
And I think there's something about like traveling and going overseas to meet people that do things that you do and just spending a bit of time with them that just unlocks something mentally. My husband went to, do they pronounce it Cannes in France?
Cannes.
Last year, Cannes. And when he came back, it was like he was a different person. It was like there's just something about it that exposes you to certain things that you're just able to. I can't explain it, and it's something I'm actually looking forward to doing as the business grows. But my biggest takeaway for today's conversation is something that you said in the beginning, where you said that you had to strip yourself off these identity and these tags that you'd given yourself as a producer or a career person to now just being it's a global stage, and that's the
Yeah.
standard. It's not I'm black. It's not although nothing wrong with all of these other
Yeah.
things. It's just saying when you reach a different level, there's a different threshold, and the scales, they become different, and now you just have to. That for me really spoke to me.
Yeah. I think there's something about being able to know that you're reliable.
Yeah.
And people can know you're reliable if you've put in that hard work.
Yeah.
You know, so I think take that time that it needs. I always hold this phrase close to heart, and I always say, you know, honor the season that you're in. I really believe that, because your season is giving you something that's going to be relevant for the next one. I always love speaking about being an engineer, because it did what it needed to do at that time. You know, even though it might be something that's a really cool degree, it's not something that I practice and something that I moved away from. So I think honor where you are with what you have, with the struggles that you have, because my struggles is what brought me closer to content. When I could see content could change my life, that's when I was like, okay, let's use it to change everyone else's. It was not that I was just someone who knew storytelling could be incredible. So I'd really love if people could take that. And the last thing is, guys, apply. There are opportunities out there. Go on your websites like Opportunities for Africans, Opportunity Desk. These are websites that exist where they're looking for creators like us. They're looking for people who are entrepreneurs, who have these ideas, people who want to give some type of seed funding. I cannot say how much, like, apply, because that's what gave me my scholarship as well.
Wow.
I always tell people that, you know, all of my big opportunities have been because of work in some type of way. When I went to Mauritius in 2017, it was for the Samsung Social Star. They were looking for the next big thing at the time. They covered that, my whole travel.
Wow.
When I went to the UK now, they covered that. When I came back, the NFVF, the National Film and Video Foundation, was looking for people to take to Nigeria. I applied for that. I shortly went to Nigeria.
Wow.
I was in another competition with MTV. They were taking people to LA. I applied for that. I went to LA. So right now I have a passport that's been used and is busy, but it was not because of necessarily just the spaces that I occupied, but because I allowed myself to apply for these things. So when you see those deadlines, guys, take your time, fill in those applications, put yourself out there. And the more you try, the more you see that you are the appetite. It's just about people knowing it.
Oh, Dennis Ngango, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For such an awesome conversation. Thank you for finally coming.
It was about time, but now I came ready.
You did. I'm so excited. I'm glad you came. Thank you so much. We're so excited to see what you're going to do with your filmmaking.
Me too.
And defining. And just, you know, we want to watch films in the cinema by Dennis Ngango. I think that would be so amazing for a lot of people. And I think for yourself as well. So.
Yeah, it's going to happen. And it's definitely in the works.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited.
Sure. Resonate community, I hope that you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. What a powerful testament to really just opening our minds to the fact that in the midst of all the struggles, there are so many opportunities for funding, for travel, and just to take you to the next level. And I hope that you just take this as permission, if you've ever needed it, to say you can always there's always a next step for you and it's available. You know, if every time you think about going to France, don't always think about having the money in your account, but think of the opportunity that is present to make you go there. So thank you for watching and listening wherever you're from. And we'll see you guys in our next podcast episode. Goodbye.